everyone, welcome. I'm Lauren MacDonald, Dean of the Library and Academic Resources and Executive Director for the Museum of Art. Welcome to the Artist Conversation of Omega Alpha. We are beyond thrilled to have the artist Harmonia Rosales with us today and art historian and scholar Sophia McCabe. And we will be enjoying their conversation about Harmonia's work. I am going to introduce our curator, Britt Royer, to introduce our speakers, but I wanted to extend my appreciation to our co-sponsors, which included, and this reflects our campus community that cares and really wanted to engage and bring our speakers here today. But we had support from the College Committee on Inclusive Excellence, the Center for Women, Gender, and Equity, Public Safety, and Student Life. So it shows the broad range of individuals who wanted to see this come to fruition. Omega Alpha has been one of the most impactful, beautiful, inspiring, and provocative exhibits that we have brought to this community. And the feedback and reception that we've received from our students and our faculty and our staff really speaks to the power of Harmonia's work. And I will now turn it over to Britt to introduce our speakers, and we'll enjoy our conversation. Thank you both for coming here today and spending time with us. Okay, Britt.
Hello. I always think it's funny whenever we do artist talks and I reach out to our speakers. I'm like, oh, be a casual conversation. And I don't tell them I put them on a stage. So thank you both. My name is Britt Royer and I'm the curator at St. Mary's College Museum of Art. In a moment, I will introduce our speakers, Sophia McCabe and Harmonia Rosales. A selection of Harmonia's work is currently on display in the museum as Omega Alpha. The title of the exhibition references the first and last letters of the Greek alphabet, Omega Alpha, reflective of the comprehension of God and Christianity, Genesis and Revelation, and the beginning and the end. Through expanding the narrative and stretching the binary, Harmonia's Omega Alpha inverts the traditional narrative of how faith and orthodox-based stories are told, envisioning a new beginning rising from an end. Omega Alpha will be on view through June 23rd. The exhibition is open today till 4 p.m. I invite you all to venture over and enjoy the beautiful, rich details of her work in person. This artist talk is just one of the many programs we offer at the museum. I would like to also invite you to attend our student acquisition pitch for our collection next Tuesday, May 7th at 3 p.m., or yoga in the galleries on Wednesday, May 8th at 5 p.m. More information on these programs can be found in the museum or on our website. At this time, I would like to introduce to you all our honored guests today. Sophia McCabe is an independent curator and adjunct professor of art history at California State University, Long Beach. She received her PhD from the University of California, Santa Barbara. Her research and publications span Renaissance and contemporary art, including the work of Harmonia Rosales. Sophia has received awards from the German-American Fulbright Commission, the Diams Foundation, and the Paul Getty Trust, among others. Her upcoming exhibition, Albrecht der Wanderlust, will open June 1st at the Huntington Library, Art Museum, and Botanical Gardens. Harmonia Rosales. Influenced by her Afro-Cuban roots, Harmonia Rosales' primary artistic concern focuses on Black female empowerment through a diasporatic lens. Her work seamlessly entwines the oral narratives and deities of the West African Yoruba religion, Greek Roman mythology, and Christianity with the artistic techniques of the Renaissance masters. For Harmonia, reimagining narratives preserves the memory of her ancestral lineage and function to campaign for resilience and question Eurocentric notions of beauty. While her subjects serve as conduits for internal struggles of disempowered society, Harmonia encourages her onlookers to possess more sympathy, empathy, and empowerment. Her work has been shown in various group and solo exhibitions, including the recent traveling exhibition, Harmonia Rosales Master Narrative at the Memphis Brooks Museum of Art in Tennessee and Spelman College Museum of Fine Art in Georgia. Harmonia Rosales intertwined at Art, Design, and Architectural Museum at the University of California, Santa Barbara. Her work is held in public institutions across the United States, including Rhode Island School of Design, Mount Holyoke College Art Museum, Smithsonian National Museum of African American History, AD&A Museum, and the Memphis Brooks Museum of Art. Please join me in welcoming Harmonia and Sophia.
Thank you, Britt and Lauren and St. Mary's College Museum of Art for having us. It's such a pleasure to speak with Harmonia again about her work. So I wanted to begin this conversation with my first encounter with Harmonia's paintings in real life. We had a studio visit, must have been in 2021, and we walk into Harmonia's studio, and she, I think, was working on maybe 2 or 3 paintings at one time, so simultaneously, which was eye-opening for me to even see that, because some paintings started on the ground, right, and then went up onto the easel. So this painting, Oba and Her Ear, was on the easel. It was completed, and this was the first painting that just really caught my eye, because I've never seen her work in real life before. And when I saw this, I just thought, oh, I know this work. This is, coming from, again, more of art history training from the Western perspective. Oh, this must be very similar to something I've seen before, which would be like a Salome with the head of St. John the Baptist, right? So it's already kind of in my mind. And this is the engaging aspect, right? Like the engagement to Harmonia's work. Now, that's one. So then you come a little closer, and then you realize, oh, wait a minute, that's not the story at all, of course. First we have a beautiful black, dark toned skinned woman with a gorgeous mauve dress, flower patterns, headdress, and then you look a little closer and you realize there are some details here that you have to, kind of scan and look closely at a painting, which is what, as art historians, we encourage everyone to do, and to see, like, what is going on here. First, you've got her ear. Well, the title is Oba in Her Ear, but of course we didn't know that, because there was no title on the easel. But you've got her ear that her ear is to be covered in the headdress, but also a white gauze dripping with blood. Then you go around the painting a little bit and you see, oh, wait a minute, is that an ear on this charger? What is this about? And then you see the knife, and it's tinged with blood. So let me give you a little bit of, do you see it a little closer? Okay. So these elements, really, again, you have to look closely, but they come out at you and they engage you. So they engage you with, like, the curiosity of what is going on here. There's something different going on here. And this is, I think, the power of Harmonia's work. She engages you first with compositions and paintings you think you kind of understand. I mean, obviously beautifully done, obviously artistry at the highest level. This. Do you see this closer? I'm sorry, I didn't get it closer. Okay, here we go. So this, beautiful skin, beautiful textiles that also remind me of like Venetian Renaissance type paintings, yet there's a different story here. And so this story of Oba and her ear, I might have Harmonia tell us a little bit about this, but just as a summary, it's really she cut off her own ear to have, basically she's, her husband, Shango, she wanted to keep Shango's love. And she was advised by her sisters to, to keep his love, your husband's love, and you're being, the first wife, you need to feed him a little bit of yourself. So what does she do? She says, okay, I'm an excellent cook. She does this, she makes this porridge. She puts a little bit of her ear in it, and Shango discovers it, before eating the porridge, and basically banishes her. So, because she disfigured herself. And so this story, this pataki, as what the Orisha tales are called, these stories then help us understand, about life. So she has been basically betrayed by her own sisters, and no fault of her own, she is banished from the house of Shango. So, did I tell that right? Yeah, okay. But this is what I'm saying, like her engagement of viewers through kind of motifs and compositions and things that we seem to understand. For example, now the second image I want to share with you, and then we'll have Harmonia kind of come in on conversation here, is Yamaya and the Ibeji twins. Well, if we look at this, we kind of have an inkling, maybe, it echoes a bit of the Virgin and Child. So, there's an echo of this. However, this is 15th century, Roger van der Weyden, Flemish painter. We've got the gold background, we've got the blue robe. Of course, it echoes this, however, it's a completely different story. And, I want to have Harmonia kind of give us a little bit of inkling about this story, but before that, if you don't mind, I'm going to read a little something that I've put together. Harmonia, your work empowers audiences. Since 2017, you've used the framework of Greco-Roman mythologies and Renaissance paintings, such as this, to recover the stories of the Yoruba gods and goddesses. In doing so, the paintings embody Black empowerment and Black female empowerment, and ask us to reconsider new ideas of power and beauty. They are in dialogue with renowned artists from medieval period to 19th century, artists that are famously situated in the Western canon of art. Your paintings challenge, engage, inspire, and educate. And through your work, we have the opportunity to see ourselves. As the exhibition Omega Alpha demonstrates, Harmonia takes the end of what we are familiar with and creates a new beginning. So, please, Harmonia. What do you think about this? Tell us how this painting, here, let me get to the painting itself. Since this is actually the feature painting of the show. So.
Can you hear me? Hello? Hello? Hello?
Yeah, just give it a second.
You gotta press it and hold it, maybe.
Is it on?
Hello?
There
Okay.
you go.
All right. So, in general, a lot of the deities or orishas had to synchronize with the Catholic saints in order to survive. So there's you'll find a lot of similarities between the orishas or depictions of them, the orishas, and images like the Virgin Mary. But there's differences, significant differences. So you have Mary and Child, and it's this pristine woman, this virgin birth, who birthed a singular chosen one to guide us. However, the difference with the orishas is Yemaya is a mother to all, and we each embody this nurturing nature at some points in our lives as mentors, as mothers, and so forth, fathers even. And she, in that aspect, she nurtures us, which we all are the chosen one. As a community, we can create change. And in this particular image, she's holding the imageries. And the reason being is because the imageries represent twins. They're the souls of twins. Twins are the soul of twins, in the belief that twins have one soul, and that they must remain together in order to ascend. So if one happens to pass away, a wooden sculpture is in its place to put on the altar in order to feed it, to talk to it, to keep it, almost trick the spirit as if it was still there, so when the other passes, they can leave together. So that is the difference with this.
Well, I mean, you talk about motherhood, and I wonder if you can give us an idea of how you've developed your artistic practice, because I think motherhood has something to do with it.
Absolutely. Let me give you a whole overview. So I grew up with an artistic mother and a very Cuban father. And I grew up in Chicago, and I fell in love with the Chicago Art Institute. And that was my playground. That was, instead of being outside, I wasn't an outside kid, was definitely the museum and the beautiful images. Because my mom is a children's book author, illustrator, I found that the Renaissance works, which I was particularly drawn to, looked like large children's book illustrations. And I would view these and I would make stories with them. This wasn't Mary and her child, this was a princess. This was like a prince, and I would create these stories, and I would love to just go back and create new stories. And with that, I also had, in Chicago, I had the nurturing nature of my grandmother, who was the conduit of these patakees to me. And so that's what I grew up with. But of course, when you grow up with something, you kind of take it for granted. And you want to feel like you belong. So when we moved from what I called my home, which was my grandmother, which was from a bilingual school that allowed me to speak Spanish, and into a smaller town that told me I was only supposed to speak English. They couldn't pronounce my name Harmonia, so it became Harmony, and I was kind of pulled away from my grandmother, and it kind of reverberated within my own family. My father, he didn't practice as much openly, spoke only English. It kind of pulled me away from my identity. And so I kind of lost it. I was lost. And having a very Cuban father, he gave me 3 tasks. Go to school, get married, have children. So I was like, no, but I want to do art, like Mom. And he was like, no, because he wants me to be financially stable and so forth. And so what did I do? I grew up and I went to school, got a degree in English, got married and had kids. And then all of a sudden I found myself back home with 2 kids, solely taking care of them, divorced. And it was like my whole world was upside down, and I felt very depressed. So nobody would hire me, and I had to find happiness again. And so I pulled an old box of some of my art supplies and used my mom's art. And I began just creating because that's where I knew my happiness was. And my daughter, who was about 6, I was looking at her and I was like, all right, you know what? I'm gonna start involving her in art because this was what made me happy. Let's go visit the Art Institute again. And I took her and I was like, I'm gonna show her my favorite paintings. This is gonna be amazing. She's gonna love it. We're gonna bond and she's gonna be just like me. And so I took her and we visited the paintings and I'm like explaining, I'm in my own world and just telling her about the paintings and she's kind of like quiet, you know, and I'm like, Madison, why don't you this is beautiful, why aren't you excited as I am? And she said so matter-of-factly, they don't look like me. And I looked at her with her little halo hair popping out, her darker skin, her beautiful features. It was like I saw the paintings again through her innocent eyes. So I was like, and I realized how lost I had been for years, and how I did everything to erase my identity unknowingly. I straightened my hair, relaxed it. I wanted a keener features. I wanted all the aspects or the aesthetics of European beauty that was supposed to be the epitome of beauty in society. So I was like, I don't want my daughter to ever see herself as unattractive. So I painted the gods to mirror her beauty. I painted her a world where she felt like she belonged. And by doing that, I also, by teaching her what I knew about my cultural background, about the gods, I taught myself. And I realized that this world that I was painting for her had brought so many others really wanting to know these stories and really wanting to see these images. And that's how I started.
Thank you for the background. I've heard it before, but just hearing it again, it's like so amazing. It's such an incredible journey, and I know that you're not done. So, but I wanted to just, I noticed something that I don't know if you've talked. I know you've talked about it a little bit, but not a lot. So, a lot of your paintings, in fact, most of your paintings, the women have shorn hair.
Yes.
Tell us why.
Oh, I wish I had a picture, but I do not want to show you guys. So when I painted the Birth of Oshun, which was one of my first paintings, so hair, at least for me, and maybe I could speak to probably majority of women of color, hair is a big thing. And I wore so many weaves, you would not believe it. And so many relaxers, it damaged my hair. And I felt like I could not leave the house without this hood of this other hair on my head, or manipulate it into what I thought it should be. And so what I did is I was like, I don't even know my own curl pattern. And I cut all my hair. And I have a picture in front of it, which I, again, no, never showing you guys, but I shaved it all off. And because I wanted to, it was like cutting off the old me and finding the new me. And so with this, hair does not determine beauty at all. And so I wanted to depict these women in their natural, beautiful forms, without makeup maybe, without just the natural beauty. And also it blurs the line between kind of like the distinction between female and male energy as well as being powerful. So all my people I portray are equal in their beauty.
This also goes in line with the Yoruba religion itself, right? Like the power of women as equal to that of the male deities in the religion.
Absolutely. The thing is, there is an equality. Creation can happen without a female or male energy, like either or. So there is a balance. Yeah.
Okay, good, thank you. So, I mean, I think this leads us really into the next painting, which is also on view here in Omega Alpha. This is a Strangler Fig, Adam and Eve double painting. And I just love this work. It's rather large, but it's got a golden background, again, almost like a gilded cage almost, but with Adam and Eve as the first man and woman, represented by black figures, black bodies. Could you tell us a little bit about this, as well as the title Strangler Fig?
Absolutely. So you have to know that all my stories, like with each pataky, they're mini versions because it's an oral tradition that hasn't been written, so stories have changed throughout time. And so all my narratives, how I retell these stories or the meanings behind it is through a diasporic lens in America. So the images I depict and everything is from what I grew up with, what was taught to me. And here, I am very careful not to continue to separate us, to add to that color line, that color divide. And so when I think of the enslavement of our minds, of our bodies, I think of it as manipulation and control, because that was and power, like money, and that's the concept, that's the definition of it, that's what drives that whole thing. And so how I was going to depict that is through a strangler fig, right? This is the fig. This is in the Bible, the tree of knowledge. In mine, it's manipulation, because if you do not know how a strangler fig works, it needs a host in order for it to grow. So it needs a tree, and what happens is it grows from the top. A bird will eat its fruit, will drop its seed, or poop on the branch, and it will grow from the top down, strangling in a way, wrapping its vines around the host tree until it reaches its soil. And when it reaches the soil, it takes all the tree's nourishment, and then the host tree dies. And as soon as that host tree dies, it blossoms this beautiful, sweet fruit for the next bird to eat, and so forth. And that's how I feel manipulation and control happens. That's how I feel like my identity was being separated from me, is by manipulation and control of society. And so that is what you see there. And the double-headed snake is very important too, because sometimes we choose the path to be manipulated. Sometimes we choose the path not to stand up to, for our identity, our own beliefs, and just kind of go with society because we think that's the easier path.
Harmonia had to point out the double-headed snake to me. I myself didn't see it, so I encourage you to take, as I said before, take a very close look at these paintings. What you also see here, which I had not ever noticed in the past, is your technique of, I don't know if it's tooling that you're using, but where the ori, the golden circle around the heads are, there's like patterns on them that are raised. And so I don't know how you did it. I know in medieval period, they use tooling, so they're using instruments to make these patterns. And so you may have done the same thing. I'm not sure, but this is again the magic I think of Harmonia's just taking these Renaissance techniques and using them brilliantly in contemporary art. One thing I want to point out here are the expressions. I mean, again, I think so. I've worked on collaborations between artists, like 17th century collaborations between like an artist who can do figures and an artist who can do flowers. Usually it's not the same person. in this case, it is the same person, and I find that incredible. So that you can do a very, an amazing strangler fig.
Thank you.
An amazing strangler fig, amazing flowers, as well as the anatomy and the facial features, the characteristics. Because looking at these two figures, looking at Adam and Eve, their expressions are what also catch me. And I think that they are thinking.
Absolutely. Yes, they're thinking.
They're thinking, yes.
And I allow this to happen because the viewer that looks at the painting can analyze their own position in society and their identity.
That's amazing. We're going to talk a bit more about your use of iron oxide, but we can do that in the next couple of paintings. Let's keep going. This is, something that models that we've seen before from 16th century. So we've got Dur on the left and then Cranach on the right. Double paintings of Adam and Eve. I'm pretty sure that you looked at these as models, but of course you're doing something completely different. Okay. Oh, so we've already kind of talked about this. Let's keep going. The next area I want to look at is I would say they are iconic, like icons of orishas. Okay. So, one thing that I just wanted to, let me go to this image of Ogun first. So one thing I wanted to kind of stress again and about the Lukumi religion, it's this idea of a colonized view of Yoruba religion, right? So in terms of bringing together Catholic saints and Yoruba deities, putting them together, syncretism is what we're saying, so a blending. So Ogun, I have to admit I don't know who the Catholic saint that he identifies with. But for example, Shango identifies with Saint Barbara, etc. So the fact that you are doing this in a visual format too, with this, we can look at it as, again, from traditional training, traditional education, it's, this is like a saint whose iconographic image is like on a chapel or something. But it's not. It's Ogun, who is the Orisha god of iron. And I bring in these images just to show you, again, this idea of a metallic background. So this is, obviously gold, tooled with halos on the saints versus Ogun's kind of basically portrait image of him. Do you want to say a little bit about Ogun?
Yeah, well, about all orishas in general. So again, the orishas speak beyond just an individual idol perception. So Ogun, the god of iron, yes, in the physical form, I made him this way because he's relatable. But in the Yoruba religion, specifically, it's knowledge of how the earth works and how the earth was created. So iron is in our blood. It's the conduit that keeps the water in the plants. It's always was present on earth. It was like the story goes, he was the first one that came down onto earth with his machete to pave the ways for the orishas. And it's kind of true because iron was present in earth. So you have to think about it that way. So when you worship or when you pray to these different deities, it's appreciating earth itself.
So, as everyone can see here, Harmonie has a lot of symbolism that she, in iconography that she actually creates herself and includes in the paintings. For example, Strangler Fig. That was something that I think you said, okay, this is how I'm going to represent manipulation. The iron oxide that you've been incorporating into your paintings, representing not only Ogun in this sense, but also ourselves, with the blood, the iron in our blood.
In the soil.
And the soil of Africa, etc. With, this image, the idea of having his machete relates to a pataky that of him basically cutting through the forest or something, right?
Yeah, and
Harmonia's gonna tell us.
metaphorical, like creating pathways, and that's what his tool is.
So I was speaking with someone before the lecture, and they said, "Oh, I thought that was a photo, not a painting," which speaks to obviously your skills in creating an image that is almost as if the person is there. So can you talk a little bit about that before we move on, in terms of kind of this layering effect that you've started to learn, or that you had learned when you began painting?
So yeah, I studied independently a lot of the old master techniques. Because these paintings are so beautiful, they're timeless pieces, they're also priceless pieces, we deem priceless, is that I want my paintings to last well after me. And in doing so, it has to take time. Anything that is created takes time. Birthing a child takes time. And so I only produce about 10 paintings a year because of the different layering. With skin, in particular, with the Renaissance, they layered a lot of thin layers, made the skin translucent, made the image come to life, regardless of the if the features were realistic or not. It made the image look realistic. So with skin, brown skin, dark skin, it's not one color. It's all colors. And that needs to be present in the painting for it to come to life, for it to have a life. So that is what I use, depending on if the undertone is blue, if it's yellow, if it's red. When I see that, when I see a person, darker complexion, even my own, there's different layers. And that's what I make sure I apply when creating the deities.
This is, I remember you saying that when you saw some of the paintings, like at the Art Institute of Chicago, that you were fascinated by how Renaissance artists created these luminescent, especially female, right? Especially women. Their skin, there's kind of like bluish, like veins and tinges and the peaches and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But then you never saw that in black figures at all.
No, if you look at all the Renaissance works of any black figure, they're faded in the background. They're kind of like muddied into, like blended in, and it's flat. And so what made these Renaissance paintings so beautiful is because the skin glowed, because of the contrast of the dark background and so forth. So I had to play with how am I going to make the skin illuminate just as so, and also contrast. And so I use gold a lot, and gold has a lot of symbols in my paintings, because in essence, especially through history, it's like we were always seen and worth more than gold. And so, like our bodies and everything, so that's why I utilize that. But it also creates a very great contrast, illuminating contrast with the figures.
I mean, absolutely, the figures glow. One of the other things that since we have this image, we want to touch on is the idea of the ori. Okay, I have this image, which is called ori here, and I wonder if you could kind of explain that to the audience a little bit. As I understand, it's one's essence, one's destiny. But I think with this painting especially, it seems a lot more than that.
This painting actually is now at the Brooklyn Museum. And I had to paint it because it was the best way to explain my quote-unquote halos. They're not halos they're halos in the sense of like chosen ones. Remember how I spoke about that we are all kind of chosen? So the ori, which is the halo you see, this is, it's our minds. It's each individual mind. And each individual mind, that's the ultimate guide in there because it controls your life. That voice, that narrator in your head. And that's depicted in the figure in the center. And if you think about it in biblical terms, it's the Garden of Eden. It's perfect, pristine, it has all the flowers, it has the nurturing ground, it has all the fertilization, everything to really lead you to your destiny. And that particular destiny that you follow, not that is told to you, but that inner thing that this is what I want to do, and you do it, that is what that ori is. However, if you see around it, on the outside of the circle, you'll see strangler figs, which are always there. It's always somebody telling you not to do something. For example, I wanted to do art, and it could be your own family members, your friends saying, no, don't do art, go to school, do this, instead. Even though you really want to do, it's like, you know in your heart this is what you want to do. So if you keep those strangler figs out and weed them out, then you'll have this clear voice in your head that really leads you down the path you're supposed to take. And if you see like there's circles within circles, when you think about life and you think about adversity, sometimes we think of certain things that happen to us as big events. So like this is, what am I gonna do? We don't think of it, we don't step back and think of it, that's just very insignificant. That's just like one page in your entire novel of your life. And that change has to happen in order for you to learn to get to the next step. And so it's kind of showing you that, okay, a divorce, that may be so significant and oh my God, my life is ruined, what am I gonna do? It needed to happen. It's just one single raindrop in an ocean, let's just say.
So speaking of ocean, and also again, your ability to do bodies and kind of sensual too. And I love how I think the idea of Yamaya as not just the mother to all, but a woman in her own right? And to have this painting, and again in the exhibition, that is incredible. So the idea of individuality and one's right to do things. So do you want to talk a little bit about this, or I can explain the story if does anybody know the story?
I mean, I could talk a little bit. So when I do paint bodies, just like Yamiya, you'll see her thin, you'll see her bigger, you'll see her, because our bodies are meant to change and fluctuate. And so I want to make sure I represent sensuality, motherhood in all forms. Same thing with the males. And so in this particular story, and like I said, each story changes depending on who's telling them, because they're not really meant to connect as an entire epic. Think of like Greek mythology. They're more so told to help you with a challenge in life, and they're adjusted to relate to you. So So with this general concept is that Yemaya is this powerful being, and she falls in love with Erinle, and Erinle is this fisherman, beautiful, beautiful being. And she is like, oh, I want him. And she like takes him down into the ocean and show him all of the secrets. And then what happens is when you think that you're in love, but it's actually lust, it fades. And then what are you gonna do? And now she's like, I showed him all the secrets. Oh my gosh, like he's gonna tell everybody. So she severs his tongue, so he would not be able to speak. And he becomes the space in between where the water and the land meets. So he is a serpent in water and an elephant on land. Great, strong beings that are silent. Yeah.
I mean, I think, you show the deities as having emotion, as having, they're not just high up there, they are, they connect with us through emotion, through whether it's sensuality, whether it's drama or whatnot, right? So,
because not only do they depict nature, but they depict also different aspects of ourselves. So we actually encompass each one. We're a mother at a certain time to a friend or whatever. We had this anger that we had, this aggression that makes us lift a table and toss it, with Ogun, like we have these different elements to ourselves. Yeah.
I'm just showing a possible model of Mars and Venus that perhaps Harmonia had looked at. This is Canova. Again, here, let me show you something else. Yeah, so, she generally is in dialogue with artists whose names that you're familiar with. Michelangelo, Antonio Canova, Paolo Veronese, Titian, Rubens, etc. But again, she is telling a different story. So again, engaging you with a familiar motif, and you're thinking that you know this, but then educating you on a totally different story, a story that was never taught to us in school. Throughout, I really did not know anything about the Yoruba religion until about 5 years ago. So this, of course, taking models from the Renaissance and the 19th century, and coming up with a visual pataky, right? I think that's what it is happening here. It's a visual pataky because they were only oral at one time. And just having, there's something to be said about the immediacy of having the visual narrative. So.
Yeah. We know certain images really well because it's all throughout films and images that we've seen, what's taught in institutions. So what I like to do is I like to kind of play and redo some of these paintings, but with a different story. So when you're able to, since we didn't learn about the orishas in our institutions and we don't know anything about them, it's a way to kind of speed up who they are. So when you see that's kind of like how God is, because that's the, or just like the Mary image, Mary and Yemaya, like, okay, Mary, I know who Mary is, I can figure out who Yemaya is easily, because that's like a similar image. So it kind of, I wanted to kind of trigger the mind to really help mainstream these orishas.
I think that's also kind of touches upon the point of this idea of like a universality in your paintings as well, in your work. I want to get to Transformations, which is your new body of work, your new cycle of paintings, 20 plus paintings that are new. Transformations, I want to first start with this, and I only have a few images here, but I want to get into this one. Eve and the Orishas. amazing painting. There's so much going on. It is, just to let you know, it is modeled after Rubens, but again, a totally different story. And let me see, we'll just go back here. And so what we have, because this touches upon how the Yoruba religion was transformed, and it touches upon how it was brought to the Americas, right, through the transatlantic slave trade. So there's a lot that is happening in this beautiful painting, okay, this beautiful painting with all these colors, with all the, this kind of dynamic action. You've got 3 animals that represent some of the powers of Europe, basically chasing Eve and the orishas. They're tumbling and trying to get away, let's say, from the powers of Europe, who are trying to kind of, as I understand, put the orishas and put the Yoruba religion into and syncretize it with Christianity. And so you'll see at the bottom these manuscript pages. Let me show you a little closer look. At the bottom, there are these manuscript pages that are, I think, taken from real manuscripts. And I just think, it's incredible, your way of bringing to light not only how the religion was transformed, but also allowing healing, or bringing healing towards the African diaspora, etc. So I think those are, when I see your paintings, they are, number one, again, beautiful works that, for me, play to Renaissance and Baroque. But then, number two, the universality of it. And then thirdly, this feeling of belonging, right? You're seeing multicultural persons represented, and this idea of healing that comes with it. So did you want to say a little bit about this image?
Sure. Probably that you're probably wondering, Eve, in general, who is she? And with my transformation series, I'm also writing. Okay, let me start. I found myself with even the first exhibition reciting these stories as I did, as my ancestors did, orally telling these stories. A lot of people are coming up to me during exhibitions, and I find myself just like telling the stories, and they're like, "Oh, where can I purchase these stories? What book? What?" And there's nothing out there in a way where it's understandable, and a way where it can be taught easily, just like Ovid's Metamorphoses, the all-encompassing Greek mythologies that are very linear in its narrative, and they all connect. So what I opted to do is create that linear narrative. And I've already started with the paintings. Eve represents my ancestors the group that came to America. So she is that, those ancestors. And you're right, she is, they are chasing her, they are erasing our stories by how should I say this? Unknowingly erasing the stories, because they were made to synchronize with the saints for so long, wearing these masks that for generations after generations of Eve's children, we forgot who were behind those masks, and we forgot their stories. And so all I'm doing with writing and completing this series is unmasking them and kind of telling their stories.
So it's more of expanding, right? Expanding that education and telling like additional stories that really aren't as widely known, and additional orishas that are not as widely known. So, and if you look closely, you'll be able to identify the different orishas with their attributes, you know, what they're wearing, etc. Okay. And then this is my last slide for this, and we can, you know, have more slides if we need to. But this is another part of the transformation series, and it is a portrait of Shango, similar to what we saw with Ogun. The Ori, however, is made up of mosaic, right? And so, again, because Harmonia's paintings are so detailed, you have to look at them super closely. You don't realize that it's mosaic until you're right up against it. So tell me a little bit about the patterns, the idea of using mosaic, etc.
So, Chango first is like Zeus, okay? So, and realizing and doing a lot of my own independent research, especially writing, is I'm realizing that there was lots of trade before, you know, it was in the history books. We weren't secluded to just Africa. We were sharing a lot of our own styles and stories and mixing of everything. And so this is my concept of when I paint. So this is why they have their fabrics are of, because they're still tethered to these different parts, these different religions and ancient stories and so forth. They're combined with Greek, they're combined with the Catholic religion, they're combined with even older religions like Mesopotamia, Sumerians and so forth. And so when I think of creating oris, it takes all these different styles in a combination, in a mix, because that's what we are, that's what I am.
Well, the multicultural way of doing things, I love it. And of course, with the mosaic technique, it's and how how it's laid down. Even it speaks to the Byzantine aspect of things. Okay, so right now, I mean, I think I'd like to open up the floor to questions. I think it's around that time. Does that sound